Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girdharadhari Jasodhanandana Mrajjana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Okay. So today we'll be From the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva, verse 33. Please repeat after me. Swataye swastaye swastirastu me Bhavataradhasaradham Sarvasma Atmane Namaha Jittam Tatma Vidvarya Swastaye Swastirastu me Bhavataradham Sarvasma Atmane Namaha Jittam Tatma Vidvarya Swastaye Swastirastu me Bhavataradhasaradham Sarvasma Atmane Namaha. Bolo.
Shirudavacha Jitamta Atma Vidvarya Swastaye Swastirastu me Bhavataradhasaradham Sarvasma Atmane Namaha. Shirudavacha Jitamta Vidvarya Swastaye Swastirastu me Bhavataradhasaradham Sarvasmatmane Namaha. Shirudavacha Jitamta Vidvarya Swastaye Swastirastu me Bhavataradhasaradham Sarvasmatmane Namaha.
Anyone else? Before we move on, I realized I forgot to do normal prayers, so we'll do those before we move on. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayasva Bhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. Okay, now word for word. Sri Rudra Uvacha. Lord Shiva began to speak. Jitam, all glories, te, unto you. Atma, self-realized. Varya, the best. Swastaye, unto the auspicious. Swastihi, auspiciousness. Astu,
Astu,
let there be.
let there be.
Me,
Me,
of me.
of me.
Bhavata,
Bhagavatam,
by you.
by you.
Aradhasa,
Aradhasa,
by the all perfect.
by the all perfect.
Radham,
Radham,
worshipable.
worshipable.
Sarvasmai,
Sarvasmai,
the supreme soul. Atmane,
Atmane,
unto the supreme soul.
unto the Supreme Soul.
Namaha,
Namaha,
obeisances. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glory is unto you. You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls. Since you are always auspicious for the self-realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all perfect instructions you give. You are the super soul. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you as the supreme living being. Please repeat after me. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead
Supreme Personality of Godhead.
with the following prayer.
Following prayer.
O Supreme Personality of Godhead,
O Supreme Personality of Godhead,
all glories unto you.
all glory is unto you.
You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls.
You are the most exalted of all souls.
Since you are always auspicious
You are always auspicious.
for the self-realized,
And self-realized.
I wish that you be auspicious for me.
Auspicious for me.
You are worshipable
You are worshipable.
by virtue of all perfect instructions you give. You are the super soul.
You are the super soul.
Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you
Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you
as the supreme living being.
as a supreme living being.
Purport. As soon as a devotee is inspired by the Lord to offer the Lord a prayer, the devotee immediately glorifies the Lord in the beginning by saying, all glory is unto you, my Lord. The Lord is glorified because he is considered to be the chief of all self-realized souls. As stated in the Vedas, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. The Supreme Being, the Personality of Godhead, is the chief living being amongst all living beings. There are different kinds of individual living beings. Some of them are in this material world, and some are in the spiritual world. Those who are in the spiritual world are known to be completely self-realized because on the spiritual platform, the living entity is not forgetful of his service to the Lord. Therefore, in the spiritual world, all those who are in the devotional service of the Lord are eternally fixed, for they understand the position of the Supreme Being, as well as their individual constitution. Thus, amongst self-realized souls, the Lord is known as the perfectly self-realized soul. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. When the individual soul is fixed in his knowledge of the Lord as the Supreme Being, he actually becomes established in all auspicious position. Lord Shiva prays herein that his auspicious position continue eternally by virtue of the Lord's mercy upon him. The Supreme Lord is all perfect, and the Lord instructs that one who worships him also becomes perfect. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. The Lord is situated as the supreme soul in everyone's heart, but he is so kind to his devotees that he gives them instructions by which they may continue to progress. When they receive instructions from the All Perfect, there is no chance of their being misled. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena imam upayantite. The Lord is always ready to give instructions to the pure devotee so that the devotee can advance further and further in devotional service. Since the Lord gives instructions as Sarvatma, the super soul, Lord Shiva offers him respect with the words Sarvatma Atmane Namaha. The individual soul is called Atma, and the Lord is also called Atma, as well as Paramatma. Being situated in everyone's heart, the Lord is known as the Supreme Atma. Therefore, all obeisances are offered unto him. In this regard, one may refer to the prayers of Kunti in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 1:820. Tata Paramahamsanam Muninam Amalatmanam Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartham Katham Pasyama Histriyaha. The Lord is always ready to give instructions to the Paramahamsas, or the topmost devotees of the Lord, who are completely liberated from all contaminations of the material world. The Lord always gives instructions to such exalted devotees to inform them how they can remain fixed in devotional service. Similarly, it is stated in the Atmarama verse, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam 1:7-10. Atmaramascha munayo nirgrantha apyurukrame Guravantya haitukim bhaktim itham bhuta guno harihi. The word Atmaram refers to those who are not interested in the material world, but are simply engaged in spiritual realization. Such self-realized persons are generally considered in two categories, impersonal and personal. However, the impersonalists also become devotees when they are attracted by the personal transcendental qualities of the Lord. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva wanted to remain a fixed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. As explained in the following verses, Lord Shiva never desires to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord, like the impersonalists. Rather, he thinks that it would be good fortune for him to continue to be fixed in the understanding of the Lord as a supreme being. By this understanding, one realizes that all living entities, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and other demigods, are servants of the Supreme Lord. Ummayanadhimrandhasya gnanjana salakaya chaksu ummilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindha Dinabandha Jagatpate Gopasha Gopaka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sotadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasa Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we've been gifted, as oftentimes, a very nice purport, really detailed with a lot of information by Srila Prabhupada. So we'll break down some of the points that were made within this purport. So first off, it talks about how one may properly pray. Now, prayer is always important because that's one of the 9 processes of Bhakti Yoga, and that's one of our connections to Krishna, even if it's more of a conversational. But prayers, we constantly read prayers, Gajendra's prayers, the prayers of Queen Kunti, so many different prayers. So Prabhupada gives us a little insider on how one should pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he mentions that one should first start off with a glorification of the Lord. We should start off not just saying, hey, Supreme Person, hey, King, Supreme Lord of all that be, give me this, give me that. He's saying that we should start off with a glorification. And if we look at a lot of the prayers within the Srimad Bhagavatam, we realize that all these different prayers start off with a glorification. Even here, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls. Lord Shiva right away starts off with the glorification of, wow, you are amazing. Because it's more personal when we start to do this. Instead of just being like a full-on business transfer, like, hey, you got what I need, so hook it up. It's more personal than that. So we're given these little insiders within the Bhagavatam, within Prabhupada's purports. Prabhupada mentions several different little insiders for us so that we may pick up on these little insiders. Just like when we look at the deities, he mentions a little thing that it's proper to look from the feet upward. That's our meditation. Just like the Srimad Bhagavatam, you don't just jump straight to the 10th canto. You start from the first canto and work your way up. It's like Krishna's lotus feet and you're working your way up. And then let's see, what's another point that we could bring up from this part while we're here? So another point that was mentioned is about the position of the Supreme Being and the position of the living entity. So the position of the Supreme Being is the enjoyer of all that be. He is the cause of all that be, the cause of all causes. And we are the enjoyed. We are the part and parcels meant to help satisfy the Lord, to help serve the Lord. And this isn't in like a slave type way or anything like this. This is more in a loving mood. That is what this connection is a loving mood. When you love somebody, you serve them. Because love is an action. It's not just now. It's not just I love you. It's not just something you throw out there. You could, but it has no value to it. What love is it's a verb. It's an action. It's what can I do for you? I love you so much. How can I make you happy? How can I make you pleased? No matter what in this material world or any state of life, you are constantly serving somebody. You are always serving somebody. You are serving your friends, your family, your nation, your job, your pets, your family. Oh, I already said family. Or you're serving yourself. One way or another, you're always at a point of service. And this is what is known as Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan means eternal, always will be, always was. There was never a time it wasn't. And Dharma means the supreme, no, that's not what I want. Intrinsic nature. Dharma means the intrinsic nature of something. So fire is hot. You can't take that away. And water is wet. You cannot take that away. So similarly, the dharma, the Sanatan Dharma, the constant, always was, always will be position of the soul is to love and is to serve out of love. So is this our position with the Supreme Lord, who is the Supreme Lover? So when we're not acting in that position, when we're not acting as a servant of the Supreme Lord, then we must know that we're not acting in our constitutional position. We're not acting in the right way. So because of this, we will always be dissatisfied. You'll never be satisfied no matter what you do because you're not in your position. If I take out, this story is used quite a bit. I'm not going to tell like the full story, but as an example, if you take out a fish out of the water and you're like, oh, let me give you this money, let me give you this bed, this beautiful girl, all these different things, the fish will not be satisfied because it's meant to live in the water. It's not meant to live outwardly. You try to give them this very opulent food. Maybe you give them like this huge like banana if you're a meat eater, like a steak or something like that. You give him a cigarette and all that. He's not going to be happy because this is not the things he eats. This is not the things he consumes. This is not how a fish is. But we're trying to be that fish. We're trying to live out this dream of all these things are going to satisfy me. All these things out here are going to satisfy me. If I have that one thing that I don't have at this moment, I'll be happy. If I go move to this other place where it's a lot nicer, I'll be happy because there's so much more I can do there. There's so much more I can do. But then you get that thing, you go to that place, you do those things, it becomes normal. And then again, you're stuck at this place of, well, what now? I got what I wanted. I moved where I wanted. But what do I do now? I'm still not satisfied. I'm still not happy. Why? Why am I not happy? It's because you're not acting in your position. You're not acting naturally. You're putting on a front. You're trying to be someone or something you're not. So just as the fish is only going to be happy if you put it back in the water, the soul within the body is only going to be happy if we bring it back to God, back to Krishna, in the service of Krishna. This is our water, this is our life, this is our prana, the life air within us. Because we're not these bodies. We're so busy trying to eat the most opulent things, have this, have that, look so nice, so beautiful, smell good. We're so busy trying to do these things. But we neglect the person within who's actually viewing these things. We neglect the person living inside. We're polishing the cage, we're making it look all nice, but we're not feeding the bird within. So the bird is dying, and we're just too busy with the cage outside. So we should figure out a way to act in that position, because this is the actual spirituality. People don't realize that. They say, oh, I'm spiritual and all that, but really, what are you doing that's spiritual? If you're spiritual, how does one act on the spirit platform? What makes you different than everyone else out there? What is what you do different than anyone else in the material world? You're still eating, you're still sleeping, you're still doing all these things. What is the difference within that? Oh, you sit down for a little bit and you focus on nothing? Big hoop-de-doo. Are you doing anything else different in your life besides just sitting there? Oh, all these like advanced words, maybe you're into crystals and all that, but what are you doing that's beyond that? How does one act as a spirit soul? That's the big question. Because we here can get an idea of what's up there, because this is a perverted reflection. But here is a thing of duality. So here, we always see it either is or it isn't. So we see form here, so oftentimes we think there's no form there. We think God must not have a form because we have a form, and since we have a form, then we'd be limiting God to say he has a form. But this is not true. This is not true. People oftentimes mistake things like this by limited perception, by dualistic thinking. So we can conclude that God is actually both. God has form and is also formless. He is in one spot, yet all-pervading. The Vedas talk about this, but this is a really hard subject for most people to be able to comprehend. But to say God does not have a form is limiting him. You put him in this box. You're saying you have something he does not. You have a form, but God can't. He's not able to do that. You're limiting him. God is unlimited. So if God has a form and you're part and parcel of him, that means that you also must have a form. That's spiritual, not this material body, but you have a form that is spiritual. You have a spiritual body. So that means that there is a personal aspect. That means there is this reciprocation between you and the Supreme Person, as well as other living beings. If you want to get on the impersonal platform, things are going to be a lot more difficult because, again, this is not your position. You are not impersonal. And anyways, Prabhupada also mentions this purport that oftentimes and eventually impersonalists will be attracted to the personality of God, the form of God, because it's the essence, it's the reality. We see this oftentimes, because you don't get much of a taste impersonally. You think, okay, God doesn't have a form, and there's so many ways you could go about that. If God doesn't have a form, that means he doesn't have a set of rules I have to necessarily follow. So why do it? Or if God doesn't have a form, that means nothing else has a form. So kind of do whatever I want, good or bad, and still, I'm just going to be nothingness anyway. So what's the point? There's so many different ways one could go about this. But our relationships are going to be different with this mentality. How do we interact with one another at this point? It could be really evil like that, or it could be super impersonal. Because what do you even talk about if there is nothingness? What if just say nothingness is the essence and reality of everything? How do you interact with someone on a truthful level? What is there to talk about? Because in the end, nothing would be real, right? There would just be emptiness. So if you talk about anything other than silence, you're speaking out of falsehood. There's nothing to it. So you get this really impersonal thing, and then your interactions with people, you're me, I'm you, this is that, whatever. It's not so personal. So with this personal aspect, we develop a deep sense of love, because Gyanis, which could include the impersonalists, only realize the Sat form of themselves, because we got the soul itself has Sat, Chit, Ananda, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. So they only realize their eternal aspect. I'm eternal. I'm not this body. Yogis are a step higher. They got knowledge. Okay, God is within, God is everywhere. Okay, they got that. But what separates the bhakti yogi from both of those is they got ananda, they got actual bliss. Because bliss comes from this personal interaction with one another and with God, with Krishna. This is actually where we get our bliss because we're personal beings. Because you're actually acting in your position. And this bliss keeps on growing. So another point I wanted to bring out here that was mentioned within this verse or within this purport is that God is always trying to help you. He is always trying to direct you. Even when you're in the slumps, all that, God is always trying to help you. As all come unto me, so as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Krishna says this within the Bhagavad Gita. All people follow his path in all respects, and he rewards them accordingly. Depending how much you want to have that association, how personal you want to have this relationship with Krishna, he'll help you get to that point. But how personal do you really want to get? How much do you really want to know God? That is up to you. Prabhupada said you could be self-realized in a minute, fully self-realized. But how many of us are actually there? How many of us are actually truly want to have that connection with Krishna? It takes time. You take this bhakti process up, hearing, chanting, following the four regs, sincerely trying to hear about Krishna, listening to Bhagavatam class and things like this. Follow the parampara. You'll know Krishna in truth with your sincerity, because sincerity is where it's at. You can make a show of all these things. Oh, I chant like 32 rounds. I read the Bhagavatam all day, this, that. But if your sincerity is not there, then you're not going to make that advancement. You're not going to be knowing Krishna on a super deep personal level. Whereas someone might not even take up all those processes. He might just chant all day long and follow the four regs, but he could still know all the purports and all the knowledge of what's within the Bhagavad Gita if he's that sincere. I'm not saying that we should do like that because we have everything here, but it's possible because it's about the sincerity. How much do you want to know God? God will direct you. Like he has directed all of us to come here. There must have been some sincerity to know something about God. Otherwise, you'd be like the other people on First Avenue. So he gives us this opportunity. And you know what? We might not even be perfect. We might not be perfect. But another thing Krishna says is that if you cannot follow the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So, okay, you can't necessarily get up at 4 o'clock, chant a full 16 rounds. Maybe you still got some attachments, so you're not completely following the 4 regulative principles yet. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. It's a hard one. Here in the US especially, that's like all we grow up around. That's all we're taught to do, because that's what life is. You go work your 9 to 5, be so tired and all that, and then forget it at the weekend. Let's go drinking, let's go to the bar, let's go smoke it up, let's do all these other things to forget about how miserable our life is. Let's just make the weekend fun. 2 days or 1 day. I got to recover Sunday so I could go to work Monday. So he says just work for him. By working for him, he'll give you the knowledge, because it's that sincerity. Like, okay, God, I know I'm not there yet. I know I cannot quite do all these things yet. I'm going to try my best to get to this point, but I'm not there. So let me offer what I can at this point in time to you. Okay, for you. And at this point, I think the only thing I could do right now is just give up meat eating. Okay, that's great. Do that, offer it, and then work your way up. Try to do a little bit more. He'll help you. Because he already said, as you surrender unto him, he'll reward you accordingly. Because it's that sincerity of, I'm trying to come back to you. I'm in this material world. I'm suffering. I know I'm not doing the right thing. I know I made a mistake coming down to this material world. How can I make it back to you? How can I serve you? How can I actually reawaken this love I've forgotten with you, this relationship I've forgotten with you? And he'll do that if we follow the process of bhakti. If we chant our rounds, we were given the most easiest method for self-realization within this age. Other ages, you had to meditate for a super long time. You had to have elaborate sacrifices. You had to have an elaborate deity worship. We have the opportunity just by chanting these names right here. 16 words, 32 syllables. So simple. You just gotta chant this with sincerity. You chant it and chant it attentively. It is our association with Krishna himself. Krishna came down as Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu, just to give us these holy names and propagate them on a widespread. Here, take these names, just chant them. No matter what stage of your life you are, no matter if you're Brahmana, Kshatriya, Sudra, whoever you are, just take these names and chant them. Even if you're not part of the Varna system, the Varnashram system, chant these names. You'll reawaken the love of God and attain the highest love of God. Not just, oh, I'm going to worship you, God. No, you're going to attain the highest personal relationship with God just by chanting these names. So please take up this process. Prabhupada came over here with only a few dollars in his pocket, surviving multiple heart attacks on the way on a boat here, and stayed up all the time, only sleeping like 2 hours, if that, sometimes, just to write the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all these literatures, opening up these temples, all this sacrifice at an older age. At an older age, how many of us would really be down to do anything like that at 69? Not many. And how many of us, even then, could have accomplished anything close to that? So difficult. So why not take up this process? Why not take the sacrifice that Prabhupada gave us? He sacrificed so much just to come here. He gave up Vrindavan. He was living in Vrindavan. He was already there, chanting so much. He had a family. He had like everything that anybody would want. Vrindavan, everything. But he came here, left it all, so that he could give us all an opportunity to go back to God, to have a personal relationship with God, so that we can be happy, so that God can be happy with us, so that we can reawaken what we've forgotten. That way, we can all come to this point and forget all the war and all that between each other. Because this is the deeper truth. This is the deeper reality. There's so much more than just this material world. Anyways, I think this is a good opportunity to open up for any other comments, if anybody would like. Divya Singha Prabhu. Prabhupada's mercy. Prabhupada wrote it in such a way that it's a little bit different than just reading the canto. If I'm correct, which correct me if I'm wrong, there are some things that aren't necessarily included in there. What was that? Oh, it's all there? Okay. Well, Prabhupada's mercy. Because Prabhupada wanted to make sure we had that before he ever left his body. Because that is a touchy subject to have other people try to translate and comment on. So at least we would have the Krishna book if you left before then. Anybody else? Comments, questions?
Christian book also has sugar nation.
That's true.
And then also you mentioned that Christians always working for us. The hundreds, tears, hundreds, they're always seeing me in all these kind of hard circumstances. Christians always in the background doing all kinds of things for like relationship Christian events. Like Christians like right around the corner. He's also doing all this stuff in the background. Techniques to make your life, make you victorious. When you mentioned that, the one who doesn't do these activities, devotional services, sincere, but still, we set their life. I don't know if that's attention. I think that it's a sign of sincerity too. You all
That could be.
one is sincere. They'll find the spiritual master, they'll follow their instructions. So that's going to be signs of sincerity. And one is willing to act in such a way. One just says, well, I want God sincere, not willing to do the surrendering process. What actually God wants us to do. Then it's kind of like for instance, if I take myself, didn't wanted to become Krishna conscious. I didn't want to take spiritual lessons. He wants to do and realize that, if I really want to please Krishna, you have to be Krishna wants. Krishna tells us we should like the spiritual master. So we have enough sincerity to act accordingly. No matter what, of course, we may not be able to physically perform all the activities of devotion service. Highest degree of effort, sincerity, and mercy take place. Say that someone just is having that sincerity where they actually act in such a way to make it happen. There's so many things.
Yeah.
Not like arguing with you, to understand the point that, like, for instance, getting up early. Getting up early is such a powerful tool to make one person conscious. So there's a lot of activities that go along with getting up early, go to bed. If you're sincere, you want to really make progress with your consciousness, and then getting up early is going to help you. You're going to change your life in such ways to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sincerity, not that I just, like, when God doesn't make us be the victim mentality, I can't do it. God helps us up themselves. We got to show our heart when Christian help us.
No, I agree 100%. That's why I was saying that you gotta do as much as you can do. Do what you are able to. Because we're not always able to do everything to the fullest extent, but we can try our best to get to that point. And then Krishna will help us with the rest. The process will help us with the rest.
And we're not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Krishna always amazing. Give us the ability to go beyond our needs. Our sincere.
Definitely. All right, anyone else before the solemn? Okay, I think we'll end it here. Kantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai. Thank you, Prabhu.